All right, well, let's convene and we will start with the roll call.
Carlson,
Yes, here.
Vasconcellos,
Here.
Walker,
Here.
Westerberg,
Here.
Major General Sailor,
Here.
Mayor Nancalif,
Here.
Bosiger, absent, Clegg.
Oh, she's here.
Oh,
She's
she
here.
is?
She's on mute.
Oh, okay. Clegg, absent, Bajent.
Good morning, everybody.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody and welcome to December 1st. Oh my goodness. Let's focus on enjoying December and not that we have so many days until the holidays and better have our shopping done. So let's jump right into the minutes, and I'm looking for approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
having read the minutes, I move that they be approved as written.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, Rebecca, we will look forward with anticipation to your director's report.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm trying to, there we go. I have things popping up, even though I thought I closed everything before we joined the meeting. So good morning and welcome. It's unfortunate that we're continuing to have to meet virtually this way, but good to see all of you via video camera. And it's been a busy month here at the airport. So we have been working diligently on our airfield paving and projects, and we have runway 10 left, 28 right that's been closed, and we actually reopened, I believe, the taxiway yesterday, and I have not heard the full report on if we opened the runway or not, but if not, it will be opening any day now. Taxiway Gulf, that's the big project that we've been working on over the summer. We finished, it's a multi-phase project. We finished phase 4 on November 11th. We're grading in the infield area between Alpha and the runway during this time. And again, this project is scheduled to finish on the 4th. We have talked about this previously with the Airport Commission, and I'm guessing that you've seen the news. It's been pretty widely covered, but we did execute an agreement with, I'm gonna see if I can move all of you. This is, when I try to move you so you can see the pictures, I end up, yep. See, it ends up moving my cursor. Anyway, you've all seen this before. That's really frustrating. Oh, here we go. Maybe I'll move you to the bottom. There we go. We're going to be constructing a new facility. Amazon will actually construct their own facility. We will construct the taxiway and the aircraft parking apron. We executed that agreement, I want to say, just prior to Thanksgiving. Was the council meeting prior to that. It's going to be a significant project for the airport, and it will be the first project that we have over in that area that we have designated for cargo development on the southeast side of the runway. It's adjacent to SkyWest. We had a busy travel season over Thanksgiving, but it went very smoothly. We were able to accommodate the peak in traffic. We also had the therapy dogs back, which are always a huge hit for our traveling passengers. And the last couple of years, we haven't been able to have them in the terminal due to COVID. So that was a nice change. And we had quite a bit of media coverage about, holiday travel and what to pack and what not to pack, being prepared. We did use the economy lot. We were concerned about capacity. So we actually had Avis and Budget relocate their overflow parking out of the economy lot, and that increased our stalls to 230, or by 230 rather. And so we were able to accommodate all the parking needs over the Thanksgiving holiday peak. We do not have numbers in for those yet, by the way. We'll probably have that next week. And if we were meeting in person, you would have noticed this morning on your way into the airport that we have updated and upgraded the airport welcome sign. You can see that it now has color and we can add more messages. So it's just very attractive greeting for people as they're arriving at the airport. And that's part of a broader program to redo all of our flight information display systems in the terminal. We've talked before about how we need to expand the security screening checkpoint. And as you can see, that work has already begun. This is going to be a project that goes through probably June, but we've added a temporary wall. And phase 1 will include replacing some TSA screening equipment that they have ordered. And then phase 2 will include adding a 7th lane. And again, we expect that the project will finish in summer of 22. We talk a lot about the projects that we're doing at the airport, passenger travel, air service, but there's a lot of people who work at the airport who make the airport run on a day-to-day basis. And you know, they work behind the scenes and sometimes they perform life-saving heroic actions. And so I just wanted to take a minute and highlight one of those examples. There have been a few of these actually in the not too distant past, but Savannah's son, who actually is a manager for SkyWest, noticed a passenger having a heart attack in the concourse, and she was able to deploy an AED and save this gentleman's life. And this happens more than we care to think about, but I know we talk about projects and air service, but when people travel, we're really connecting people to other people and other places in the world. And so I just wanted to highlight the work of Savannah and quite frankly, others like her who are here on a daily basis, just making a difference. Back to projects and infrastructure. Everyone's heard about the Infrastructure Investment Act. 25 billion was allocated to airports. Of that, 15 billion will go to the infrastructure program, 5 billion to the terminal program, and 5 billion to the FAA. That will be further broken down into different project categories, but we'll be able to use that funding not only for AIP, but PFC eligibility. And that's a little bit different. There's some broader eligibility for PFCs than we have with AIP, so it gives us more flexibility. We can use the funds to carry out noise compatibility measures, whether or not they're part of a Part 150 program, which probably is not significant for us, but is an option. Constructing gates and related areas for boarding and exiting aircraft. And one of the other things that we're looking at is converting vehicles and ground equipment to low emission technology or even electric vehicles. So the program priorities that are listed in the infrastructure bill include increasing capacity, replacing terminals, ADA accessibility, access for disadvantaged populations, energy efficiencies, upgrading plant and infrastructure facilities, achieving the LEED accreditation and airfield safety through terminal relocations, and encouraging competition. So what I think that means for BOI is based on the formula that's included, we think that we would receive 6.6 million for passenger allocations plus another 182,000 based on cargo for a total of 6.8 million per year for the term of the infrastructure package. Would not be complete if we did not talk about passenger enplanements. Passenger enplanements were down 4% in October compared to October of 2019. Again, I think that recovery is going to show us being well ahead of the national average, where I think we're probably at about 85% nationally. And then year to date, we're up 81% over 2020, but down 14% over 2019. And then this is just another chart that looks at the same thing a little bit differently, showing some different years. 2021 is the darker blue line on your screen. And then operating revenue and again, we are at the very beginning of the fiscal year, so I would encourage you not to put too much weight onto any of these items. Some of these things are related to timing or how payments are being made at this point, but there's nothing that's at this point of concern. And then operating expenses, same major categories. And that concludes my report.
Great. Are there questions from commissioners?
Madam
Okay.
Chairman,
Yes.
Rebecca, I'm assuming the cargo facility Amazon is constructing, once it's completed, will be assessed by the Ada County assessor and put on the local tax rolls. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Bill.
No, it's Frank.
Oh, Frank. Yes, sorry.
Rebecca, what are the projected revenues for the facility, the Amazon facility down the line, as far as the airport recouping the $22 million?
So the airport, the $22 million, there's a couple different things with that. One, it's not going to be just to the benefit of Amazon. There will be other potential users that will go there in addition to Amazon. So Amazon is the first, but we do not think that they will be the last. There's another location there for another, at least one more, if not two more cargo carriers that we can fit there. And then when that happens, that project will become eligible to be reimbursed by FAA as part of our infrastructure. So we're not necessarily looking to recoup all of that $22 million from Amazon by themselves.
Will there be an ongoing revenue stream in any way?
Yes, there will be, because they are doing a ground lease for the property. And then also they will pay landing fees for every time an aircraft lands in Boise.
All right,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Other questions?
Madam Chairman, I just had a question on the expense sheet that you showed, Rebecca. There was a line item for subscriptions and something else that was quite different from last year. What is that about?
That is just a timing issue. Those are subscriptions to our trade organizations, and we paid them in the last fiscal year instead of this new fiscal year. So the amount is relatively the same. It is just a timing, an issue of when we paid it.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
Rebecca, do you have an estimate of how many operations on a daily or a weekly basis at Amazon?
At this point, I believe they're considering 2 flights daily. And they're looking at first at narrow body, but then going to a larger wide body aircraft when they're able to do that, based on our ability to accommodate that larger aircraft.
And so the taxiway construction, obviously their facility will support a wide body down there as well.
It is being constructed initially to accommodate a narrow body, because we have to move some nav aids for the FAA. There's some nav aids that are in that area that need to be relocated. So initially it will only be able to accommodate a narrow body, but once we work with FAA to move the nav aids and relocate them, then it will be able to accommodate a wide body.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Rebecca, you said that the new infrastructure bill, that looks like formulaically we would qualify for 6.8 million a year for the term. What is the term?
As I recall, it's 5 years for the infrastructure.
Okay, so that's a significant amount of funding for improvements.
It is. And again, that's an estimate. It's
Yeah.
based on passenger employment. So if we continue to grow, it could be more. If we continue to stay at levels that we saw in 2019, it could be less.
Okay.
But I don't think that's very likely. I think it's more likely to be more than less.
Right. And what is the timing process for making the first application for funds?
That I don't recall.
Okay.
It's probably within this calendar year, or
Okay.
within this fiscal year.
Yes, yes.
But
Okay.
FAA is still in the process of issuing all of the other grants that we received. So you may recall the airport received about $42 million during COVID over 3 different grants. It was the CARES grant, the ARPA grant, and then CARISA.
Mhm.
I think CARISA and then ARPA. But anyway, there were 3 different federal funding programs where airports received funding, and it totaled about $42 million for those 3 programs. And this will be in addition to that. And so it is I would say it's a challenge because each different piece of legislation has its own reporting requirements and its own application requirements. And we're still getting guidance on the previous funding sources. So while we know the infrastructure bill is coming, I don't know that we've done anything with it just yet. I think we're still waiting on guidance.
What would you estimate the resource requirement by the airport to support and manage these grants with their paperwork? Is it outside your normal sort of process and team?
I would say that it probably is. We're evaluating that. And then next item up on our agenda is our organization assessment, which you so astutely suggested that we do. I would say that the city has added a staff person just so that they can manage and track the CARES funding and all of the federal funding that's come through during COVID. We have not, but we did add one person just prior to COVID to help us with our capital grant accounting, and this would fall into that category. So whether or not that one person will be enough based on all of these new funding sources and requirements, that I don't think we've fully assessed yet, but we would not have been able to do it with our existing staff before. Before we were probably managing 3 to 4 grants a year, and now we're managing probably the 3 to 4 that we were before, plus another 3, plus our passenger facility charges. So I would say it's more than, the workload has more than doubled.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, and we would formally note, welcome to City Councilwoman Elaine Clegg.
And
Yeah.
I apologize for being late. My husband and I got talking about something, we lost track of time. Sorry. So Rebecca, with the new infrastructure bill, in addition to the formula funds, there are a couple of grant programs that are going to be open for airports. Do we know anything about them yet?
We've started looking at them, but I certainly don't have all of the information on those yet. There are going to be additional opportunities around key specific areas, but we haven't fully explored those yet now. Okay,
I just look forward to, I do know that the National League of Cities worked very hard to ensure that there is more money in this particular package that will go directly to cities through competitive grant programs than has been done previously. So we should just be aware of that and keep an eye on it.
thank you.
All right, we'll move into the 4th item on the agenda, which is commissioners' comments. And I will proceed based on what's showing up on my screen. So first on my screen is Westerberg. Russ.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. As you recall at our last meeting, I kind of agonized over a trip I had planned with my family to a foreign country using American Airlines, and I was concerned about some of the cancellations that occurred. I'm pleased to report that American Airlines performed as advertised. They performed very precisely. They were on time, and I enjoyed their flights immensely. I will advise any of you, if you anticipate going out of the country right now, that you rethink that, because getting back in here is not a simple process. I was a little bit agonized down at the resort. I was there for a week. In the middle of that week, I came down with maybe allergies or the symptoms of a cold, and knowing that I had to pass a COVID test to get out of there, I didn't sleep well a couple of nights, but fortunately I passed the test, and that still doesn't get you out of the airport. You also have to show them your vaccination card. So there's some hoops to jump through, but fortunately the airline held up their part of the bargain, and I held up mine, and I was allowed to re-enter the country, and I don't plan on leaving again soon.
Well, we're certainly gratified to hear that you came back and weren't permanently on resort time. So Frank Walker.
I have nothing this morning, Madam Chair.
All right. Moving on, Patrick Bajan.
I have nothing for you this morning. Thank you so much.
Mayor Nancolis.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you, even if virtually, and congratulations again to Rebecca and all your staff. Every time I attend one of these meetings, I am amazed at how successful you are, how well managed the airport is, and again, I know we're over here in Caldwell, but what an asset this airport is to the Treasure Valley. Just as a note, Amazon did want to build their terminal in Caldwell, but we just didn't have quite enough room, so they decided to go to Boise. That is not true.
In our way.
No, the only thing I have again is just huge thanks to all of you for the privilege of serving on this commission. I will hopefully have my last surgery this year tomorrow morning. So I will be entering La La Land about 7 o'clock in the morning. So, and hopefully they'll get all this taken care of this time. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully in January, and wish you Merry Christmas, and again, just Happy New Year. And it's a pleasure being on this commission.
Well, we wish you success in this surgery and speedy recovery. Jamie Bosiger, please.
I echo that, what Meg says, Mayor Nancolis, we wish you all the best. You'll definitely be in our thoughts. My family and I just finished a trip from Boise to Washington, D.C. The kids were so excited to travel on the airlines for the first time in a couple of years. So it was busy as advertised, but everything went smoothly. I am eagerly awaiting the runway opening. Did go across the new taxiway last night, which was nice, but it will be nice to have that runway open. So thanks for all the work on getting that done.
Thank you. Bill Vasconcellos.
Well, like Jamie, my wife and I had our first airline travel since COVID started, and we flew on Alaska from Boise to Seattle and Seattle to Maui, and we had a very nice stay there. Everything went smoothly, except that when we were departing Maui, there was a young fellow who sitting about two rows in front of us who would not put his mask on properly, and he was asked to leave the plane. So we left without him, and I was happy that he left peacefully. But anyway, that was a nice trip for us, and everything went pretty well in the Boise airport. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Clegg.
Well, thank you. I'll be brief. I haven't traveled yet, but I get to next week. So I will next month report to you on what my experience was.
Great. General Saylor.
Have nothing to add. Welcome Russ back to the good old USA, and hope you all have a great and happy Merry Christmas.
Thank you. I also don't have any experience to share in terms of travel in November. We stayed put, and actually I was quite relieved not to be joining the masses flying across the country over the Thanksgiving holiday. So Rebecca, let's move on to the new business, which is the organizational assessment update.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you all for sharing your comments about your Thanksgiving travel. I did travel as well, and I will report that my travel went smoothly, and every single flight that I was on was 100% full. So I'm anxious to see what our passenger numbers turn out to be. Chair Meg, I think that you were the one who had suggested that we review our staffing in light of the fact that we have transitioned to that medium hub category, and in light of all of the things that we are working on. And I think most of you were probably on the airport commission when we did our last organization assessment. I think perhaps Commissioner Bosinger and perhaps Councilmember Badgett were not on the commission. So some of this will be new to them, but most of you will have seen this, some of it before. We actually have engaged a group called Baldwin Associates, Steve Baldwin and Penny Perkins. They worked on our last organization assessment, which we did in 2019. We've engaged them to update that in light of the growth that we have seen, and also in light of the fact that we are transitioning to a medium hub. So really, I wanted to go over, what's the reasoning behind doing it? What did we do? What did we find last time, and what have we done since then? What the process and methodology will be for this study, and then the next steps. So when we talk about why we need to do this, and I think we've all seen this before, Boise is growing amongst the fastest in the nation, if not the fastest, depending on which source you look at. The airport mirrors that growth, and while our entire community, Caldwell, Nampa, Middleton, Starwell, they're all growing, Eagle, and Boise's growing, those other airports don't have a commercial service airport, or those communities don't have another commercial service airport. So when Boise Airport grows, it's not just the growth of Boise, but the growth of the entire region. And, based on this growth, we are having to undertake a very aggressive expansion and improvement program. All of that takes people. So notwithstanding 2020 and not knowing how we're going to end 2021, we are expecting, we've seen over 7 years, a 58% growth. We are expecting in 2021, again, that we'll be back at about 90% of where we were in 2019. So we're probably right around travel that we saw in 2018 is our estimate at this time. And to accommodate that growth, we're looking at the rental car relocation and consolidation, the parking, public and employee, those projects have actually been bid, and we're getting ready to award those. We now have the South Cargo development that we've just added within the last month that we'll be working on. And then, of course, Concourse A, which is the goal to add more gates, and then eventually refresh Concourse B. So pretty heavy lift. Just a quick reminder of what that build out will look like over by the terminal. So when we did the study in 2019, it found a few things based on the internal perception, which matched the external data. What we found is that we were, of the airports that we compared ourselves to, and I think we compared ourselves to 6 airports. We were the 3rd largest in terms of employment, but we had the smallest staff size. Our salaries were at the lower end of all the participants, because we did look at salaries as part of the last study. The benefits were comparable, and we also had the lowest cost per in-plane passenger of all of the airports. That study made several recommendations, and we have done most of them, which enabled us to really manage through COVID and continue with the planning that we had been worked on and do some of the things like we talked about as far as making sure we were staying safe operationally, keeping people distanced, managing those grants, and working remotely. We were able to do all of those things. So one of the first things that the study recommended is that we convert temporary positions to full-time equivalent positions. We had been using back in 2019 a number of temporary full-time employees to fill a need because we hadn't wanted to actually add permanent full-time positions after the recession. And so we did convert a number of those to full-time permanent. And then we also added staff in key areas, airfield engineering. Back probably 3 years ago, we had our Deputy Director of Engineering, Matt Pataya, and he had 2 project managers. And we have since added an airfield engineer who oversees all of the airfield projects, which has enabled Matt to focus on some of the other capital program items that we're working on, and added project managers to help with some of those day-to-day things. We added a business development manager and staff, so including another person to help us with leases and tracking leases. We had one person who was managing over 300 leases, and so to be able to take on new projects like, for example, the requests for expressions of interest that we just did for non-aeronautical property, we would not have been able to do that without adding the staff that we did, and we probably would not have been able to manage all of the things that we did through COVID on that side. One of the recommendations that we were not able to implement was to add a dedicated full-time attorney to the airport. That was something that just was not looked upon favorably by the city. All of the city attorneys report through the city attorney office, and so that was not something that we were able to do. We did add a credentialing supervisor, which has allowed us to expand our hours. And then again, I mentioned we had added some additional project managers, additional supervisors for staffing on nights and weekends. It used to be that some of our teams worked Monday through Friday, despite the fact that our airport is a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week operation. And we don't have 24/7 coverage in all of our areas, but we do in most of our areas. And in most areas, we have at least 7-day coverage. So that works well. And then just additional frontline staff in our operations and facilities. A couple of the other recommendations were to standardize the titles and hierarchies consistent to industry norms, which makes us actually these last 2 things, increasing the wages allows us and enables us to attract and recruit talent to the Boise Airport when we have open positions. So we have accomplished most of the recommendations that were included in the last update. But again, that last update was just to bring us to meet the needs at the time of where we were at that point in time. So now in 2021, we're going to do an update to make sure that we have a cohesive plan related to our personnel needs. Really, we want to focus on accommodating future growth. We need to look at meeting regulatory requirements based on the medium hub classification. So there are some reporting requirements that we have to do around competition and the competition plan. Again, managing that large expansion and upgrade program. And then looking a little further down the road of managing the facilities after we've completed all of these infrastructure upgrades, and just making sure that we're continuing to meet the community needs and expectations. So we'll look at the existing staff and see how we are able to meet the regulatory and service requirements. Again, looking at any specialty areas that might be lacking. So, you know, if we're doing things, for example, one of the things that we're looking at doing is developing all of that non-aeronautical land. If we do that, that could be a full-time job, just managing that process. And then we want to look at how the Boise Airport compares to other airports And not just our peer airports, but also perhaps some aspirational airports, because we have transitioned to the medium hub and we want to make sure as we grow that we have the right infrastructure and staffing model in place. So the methodology, there'll be two parts, an internal analysis and an external analysis. The internal analysis will be reviewing, collecting data, including interviews with staff, and looking at our structure and our job descriptions. And then we'll gather data from peer airports and look at their structure and staffing and at what specialty areas and skill sets they may have. So we'll be looking at what would be comparable airports, and we'll select those airports and alternates. And then we'll identify which things specifically want to compare, get participation, support, and then gather, organize, and collect the data. And this is a very important step to make sure that we're comparing ourselves to the correct peers. And I think that some of the peers that we selected last time, we will carry forward. And then we may select additional new peers, again, just because we've transitioned into that medium hub role. We might look at more at medium hubs. I won't read this whole slide to you, but this is, again, looking at the criteria for how we might pick different comparable airports. We want to pick airports that are like Boise. You know, we don't want to pick an airport that's of a similar size in, let's say, Hawaii, because they're an island, would not be a good match, even though they might be a similar size and their climate is very different. So we need to consider all of these different factors to pick airports that truly have a similar operating environment to Boise. And then there will be survey questions, and we'll ask them to provide us documents so we can do a comparison. And then for next steps and implementations, we're actually in the process of conducting staff surveys. That's already started, but that will be the first 2 weeks of December. We will work to identify the peer airports and collect the data. Then we'll compile it and present the final findings to Airport Commission with recommendations. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
Madam Chair, Rebecca, this is Garrett.
Yes.
It's not a major question, but when you talk about selecting peer airports to do the comparisons, is that something that the consultant does? Is that in conjunction with you and your staff? How is that process? How does that process work?
Yes. So the consultant will make recommendations. And last time we went through a series of airports and we looked at I think we started with a list of about 8 and narrowed it down to 6. And it might have been slightly more than that because one of the airports that we had wanted to use as a comparison and said that they just didn't have time to participate. So we had to go to an alternate. But we will do that. Also, we'll probably involve HR in that decision, our Human Resources Office, because they'll want to look at the staffing structure and make sure that it's comparable as well.
Thank you. Other questions?
Madam Chairman, sorry.
Yes.
Rebecca, quick question about the fact that we chose not to put a full-time legal counsel at the airport. I think that's a recommendation that was probably well-meaning, but just didn't fit with the structure of how the city runs things. So this time, as those kinds of recommendations go forward, will the commission have a chance to say, yeah, we understand that recommendation, but we're not going to carry it forward, rather than say, hey, we didn't do this one, even though it was recommended?
I think recommendations are recommendations based on what we see in the industry, and it's up to commission and city leadership to make that decision. as far as what works for the city and what doesn't work for the city.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
we could
appreciate that.
eliminate it as a
I just felt like that got carried forward, and my memory is that we knew at the time it wasn't something that we were likely to do. And anyway, thanks.
I agree. It was something that was not something that we were willing to consider at the time. It is, however, outside of what most other airports do.
And Rebecca, is that because of the unique legal implications of operating an airport?
Yes, I would say there are a number of nuances related to airports that are very specialized and unique. For example, our airline use and lease agreements, we will engage a consultant to assist us with that. They're very, very specialized, and the regulatory environment that we operate in is also fairly specialized. I think the concern in the assessment was just the amount of and the volume of work that comes through the airport, and then just the continuous changeover in legal is the training that it takes to get someone really to understand all the different aspects. It's a challenge, and I don't want to put Kelly on the spot, but she's been I think our fourth attorney in the 9 years that I've been with the airport. And she's been on board with us probably for a year now. And I think she would tell you it's been an educational experience because she's getting exposed to just a wide variety of topics and issues, and we're making it work. And Kelly's doing a great job for us. I can't say enough good things about each of the attorneys, honestly, that we've worked with the city, but that was the rationale behind the recommendation.
Mhm. Thank you. I assumed it wasn't just that this is what everybody else does, and that there was foundational information below. So that's why I asked the question.
Well, I think there's a reason, different groups do it different ways. And to be fair, a lot of the airports that we compare ourselves to are authorities, because most of the airports of our size are authorities. So their structure is just naturally going to be a little bit different.
Yes, yes. Thank you for clarifying. Appreciate it. Any other questions from commissioners?
And just so I'm 100% clear, that it is working. I'm not complaining about our city legal. I think,
Right.
again, Kelly has done a tremendous job, and she's been incredibly valuable. And our previous attorneys were also incredibly valuable and an important part of our team.
Madam Chairman, if I could follow up, Rebecca, having heard all this, actually, it seems to me that maybe the recommendation in the last study should have been not to hire your own counsel, but if you to ensure that you have counsel that's well-trained and that's consistently with the airport over time, because that's something we can carry forward into the legal department within the city. And I think probably do a better job of assigning folks that are really interested in it, that we believe intend to stay with the city for some time, and not have all the turnover in personnel.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a great insight, Councilman Clegg. Appreciate your sharing that.
You bet.
Other questions?
Just to follow up, Madam Chairman, on that, with the attorney and having in-house counsel, one of the questions that would come up is how much is budgeted for outside counsel? And are we spending? I don't see that we rely on contract counsel, and we shouldn't have to. And that's one of the important parts of having counsel available and able to cover all the different aspects. But do we spend much on outside counsel?
I don't have a number in mind. We have used outside counsel again when we're dealing with something that's very specialized. So for example, we retained outside counsel when American Airlines filed for bankruptcy. No, not American Airlines, excuse me, when Hertz filed for bankruptcy. We hired a bankruptcy attorney. We hired outside counsel to assist us with the land issue that we were having. I think we may hire outside counsel to assist us with negotiating, again, a very technical, specialized agreement that you would not do, on a regular basis. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. There are certain things that we do at the airport that we're just not going to have the breadth and experience to have internal counsel. You really want to have someone, for example, on airline use and lease agreements, we're going to use consultants who do airline use and lease agreements at 50 different airports, not just someone who only has the experience of working at the Boise airport, and that's what they've seen. So I don't think that it's a negative thing to use outside counsel. I think it's entirely appropriate in specific circumstances. Just like we're hiring a consultant, for example, to help us with the design of the car rental parking garage. There's no one here who's done a consolidated car rental parking garage facility. And so we want to hire someone who's done 50 of these across the country. It's the same concept.
No, and I don't disagree. Obviously, there's a need for outside counsel, bond work, bankruptcy, things like that. Just so long as you have a base of support that everything is covered, and if you need to go outside, you go outside, as opposed to an outfit like ACHD, which spends a fortune on outside counsel every year. And Boise City's attorney, the city attorney's office is much better than that. And they don't allow that creeping contract counsel to come in. That's quite an alliteration. But anyway, they're more mindful of that. And I do appreciate that with the city and the airport. But I was just, something to be wary of, in the sense that if we're not getting enough service out of the city at the city attorney's office just because of staffing, the tendency would come up is to throw it to outside counsel just to fill the gaps. And that's what you want to avoid.
I agree with that. And I think one of the reasons it was recommended to have an airport attorney was just to have someone dedicated full-time, because at the time we did not have an attorney full-time. And I think if you look at the volume of projects and contracts that come through the airport, it certainly could justify a full-time attorney.
Any other questions from any other commissioners? Well, good. Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate your moving forward directly with this initiative following my questions last time. And we look forward to the active engagement in the process.
Thank you.
All right, I think we move now to the general public and invite any member of the public who has a specific question or an issue they'd like to bring forward in front of the commission. This would be the time to raise their hand and do so. Do we have anybody online?
I'm looking at our list of participants. Not seeing any hands raised or anything in the chat.
Okay. Then any other closing comments from commissioners? If not, let's, I think we are ready to stand adjourned. So I will entertain a motion to do so.
Madam Chair, I would move that we adjourn and say thank you and Merry Christmas to all.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, nay. So just a reminder that we will see you in February.
Oh.
The January meeting was, we were not going to have a quorum because of holiday travel. So we have elected to skip January. So we'll come back with full steam ahead in February. I wish everybody extremely happy holidays with lots of love with family and friends. And if you're traveling, safe travels.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time.